Code of Hammurabi's Builder Law. In ancient Babylon, a bad construction job was not just a professional failure. Under the Code of Hammurabi, it could become a death sentence. The Code of Hammurabi was created in Babylon during the reign of King Hammurabi, around the 18th century BC. It is one of the most famous ancient law codes ever discovered, carved onto a stone stele and written in Akkadian. Many of its laws followed a harsh principle. Punishment should match the damage, but not always in the way modern people would expect. One of the strangest examples involved builders. If a builder constructed a house badly and the house collapsed, killing the owner, the builder could be put to death. That sounds severe already, but the law went even further. If the collapse killed the owner's son, then the builder's son could be killed instead. The punishment was not only aimed at the person responsible, it could fall on someone connected to him by family. The Yale Avalon translation of Hammurabi's code preserves these house collapse laws, including the rule that if the owner's son died, the builder's son would be put to death. To a modern audience, that feels deeply unfair. A child could be punished for the father's work. But in Hammurabi's world, family, property, status, and responsibility were tied together differently. The law was designed to make builders fear negligence. It turned construction into a matter of life and death. This law is weird because it treats architecture like moral responsibility. A weak wall was not only a technical mistake, it was a crime that could destroy two families. Babylon's debt servitude law. In the ancient world, debt could take away more than money. It could take away freedom. Under the Code of Hammurabi, if a man fell into serious financial difficulty, he could sell his wife, son, or daughter into debt servitude. They would work in the creditor's house, but the law also placed a limit on the term. According to a translation of Law 117, family members sold because of debt were to serve for 3 years and be released in the 4th. That limit matters. The law sounds horrifying today, but it also shows an attempt to regulate a harsh reality rather than leave it completely uncontrolled. In a world without modern bankruptcy courts, welfare systems, or consumer protections, debt could pull an entire household into crisis. Hammurabi's law accepted that family members could be used to repay debt, but it also prevented permanent loss in that specific case. The strange part is the mixture of cruelty and restraint. The law allowed something modern people would consider unacceptable, but it also tried to stop creditors from holding family members forever. It was not freedom in the modern sense. It was controlled hardship. Babylon's debt law reveals how ancient justice often worked, not by protecting individual rights as we understand them today, but by organizing society's inequalities into rules. The result feels both brutal and bureaucratic, as if human freedom could be measured in repayment terms. The trial by river. Some ancient courts did not try to solve every case with witnesses or evidence. Sometimes they handed the decision to the gods. In Mesopotamian law, accusations like sorcery or adultery could lead to a river ordeal. The accused person had to enter the river, and the outcome was treated as a divine judgment. The exact procedure could vary and is not always fully understood, but the idea was clear. The river was not just water. It was a sacred force capable of revealing truth. The Code of Ur-Nammu, one of the oldest surviving law codes from Mesopotamia, includes laws involving ordeal by water. If someone accused another person of sorcery, the accused could undergo the river ordeal. If the accused survived or was judged innocent through the ordeal, the accuser had to pay a fine. The Code of Ur-Nammu is often described as the oldest known surviving law code, predating Hammurabi by centuries. To modern thinking, this sounds like chance disguised as justice. A person's guilt could depend on whether they survived a dangerous ritual, but in the ancient worldview, law, religion, and nature were not separate systems. The gods could speak through events, and the river could become a courtroom. This law is strange because it transforms water into a judge. No cross-examination, no forensic proof, no jury debate. The accused entered the river, and society waited for the divine verdict to surface. The 12 Tables and the power of the Roman Father. Ancient Rome is often remembered for roads, armies, senators, and law, but some of its earliest legal traditions show a family system that could be shockingly severe. The 12 Tables, created in the 5th century BC, became one of the foundations of Roman law. They were displayed publicly so citizens could know the rules, but some of those rules reveal a world where the father's authority was almost absolute. In Table 4, the law states that a father had power of life and death over his son. It also says that if a father sold his son 3 times, the son would finally be free from the father's authority. This was connected to the Roman concept of patria potestas, the legal power of the male head of the household. A Roman father was not simply a parent in the emotional sense. He was a legal authority inside the family. Children property, marriage decisions, inheritance, and household discipline existed under his control. The rule about selling a son 3 times sounds especially bizarre today. It suggests that a father could temporarily transfer his son through sale, but repeated use of that power could eventually break the father's authority. The law did not begin from the assumption that the child was fully independent. It began from the assumption that the father ruled the household. Rome's family law feels strange because it shows how public law entered private life. The household was not just a home. It was a miniature power structure, and the father stood at the top. The Roman law on deformed infants. One of the most disturbing lines in the 12 tables concerns newborn children. The law says that a notably deformed child should be killed immediately. The Yale Avalon translation includes this rule under Table 4, alongside other laws about paternal power. This is one of those ancient laws that is difficult to hear without discomfort. It reflects a world with very different ideas about disability, family duty, survival, and civic order. Ancient societies often faced high infant mortality, limited medical care, and intense pressure on household resources. But even with that context, the law feels harsh because it places the value of a child under the judgment of physical acceptability. The disturbing part is how formal the rule sounds. It is not presented as a tragic personal decision. It appears as a legal expectation. The state's earliest written law code acknowledged and regulated a practice that modern people would see as deeply cruel. This law is weird in the darkest sense because it shows how ancient legal systems could define human worth before a child had even begun life. It reminds us that the history of law is not only the history of justice. Sometimes it is also the history of who society chose not to protect. Draco's death penalty for almost everything. The word draconian still means extremely harsh, and it comes from one man, Draco of Athens. Around 621 BC, Draco was credited with creating one of Athens' earliest written law codes. Before written laws, justice could depend heavily on aristocratic power, memory, revenge, and private interpretation. Draco's code was important because it put laws into written form, making them more public and consistent. But the reputation of those laws became terrifying. Later ancient tradition claimed that Draco prescribed death for many offenses, including minor crimes. The famous story says that when asked why he gave death as the penalty for small offenses, Draco answered that they deserved it, and he had no greater punishment for serious crimes. Modern historians are careful here. Many details of Draco's laws are known through later sources, and most of his code was later repealed by Solon, except for homicide law. Still, his name became permanently associated with extreme legal severity. Draco's laws are strange because they show how reform can become frightening. Written law was supposed to reduce chaos and blood feuds. But if the written law is merciless, order itself becomes terrifying. Athens eventually moved beyond Draco's system, but the memory survived. His laws became a warning that justice without proportion can become another form of violence. Athenian Ostracism. In ancient Athens, a man did not need to commit a normal crime to be removed from the city. He only needed to become too dangerous politically. Ostracism was a democratic process that allowed Athenian citizens to vote someone into exile for 10 years. The word comes from ostraca, pieces of broken pottery used as voting tokens. Citizens scratched a person's name onto a shard, and if the process reached the required threshold, the targeted man had to leave Athens. He was not executed. His property was not necessarily confiscated. He was simply removed from political life for a long period. The system was designed as a defense against tyranny and dangerous political dominance. Ancient sources connect ostracism with fears about powerful individuals threatening the democracy. Scholarly discussion of ostracism notes that ancient sources agreed the institution was aimed at the party of tyrants and its leaders. This law feels strange because it punished potential danger rather than proven crime. A politician could be exiled not because he had definitely betrayed the city, but because enough citizens believed he might become too powerful. Ostracism shows the nervous side of democracy. Athens trusted citizens to govern, but it also feared charismatic men who could bend the city around themselves. So the people created a legal way to say you may not be guilty, but you are becoming too dangerous to keep nearby. Sparta's iron money. Sparta did not only control behavior through military training. According to ancient tradition, it even tried to control desire itself. Plutarch's Life of Lycurgus says that Sparta rejected gold and silver money and used iron currency instead. The story claims the iron was made deliberately inconvenient and nearly useless for luxury trade. It was heavy, awkward, and difficult to store in large amounts. The purpose was to discourage greed, corruption, and luxury. Plutarch describes the later arrival of gold and silver as something that helped undermine the old Spartan system. This story should be handled carefully because Lycurgus is partly legendary, and ancient accounts of Spartan customs often mix history, ideology, and moral storytelling. But the tradition itself reveals how Sparta wanted to be remembered as a society that fought wealth by making money unattractive. The idea is almost absurd in modern terms. Most governments want useful currency. Sparta's legendary lawgiver supposedly wanted money that was hard to enjoy. The law did not simply punish theft or bribery after the fact. It tried to make luxury harder from the beginning. Sparta's iron money is weird because it treats currency like a moral threat. To control the citizen, the city first tried to control what he could desire. Hittite laws and the price of body parts. The Hittite laws, preserved on cuneiform tablets from ancient Anatolia, can feel strange because they often treat injuries through very specific compensation. Instead of always demanding death for serious wrongdoing, many Hittite laws set payments for particular harms. If someone injured another person, damaged property, or harmed a slave, the legal response could involve fixed amounts of silver. The University of Texas Linguistics Research Center describes the Hittite legal collection as a compilation of civil and criminal law preserved in more than 200 clauses, with the earliest record dating to about 1650 BC. This creates a legal world that can sound oddly transactional. A wound, an ear, an animal, a field, or a labor obligation could become a priced category. The law did not always ask, what is emotionally fair? It often asked, what must be paid? The weirdness is not that compensation existed. Modern law also uses fines and damages. The unusual part is how openly the code prices bodies and social status. A free person, a slave, an animal, and a piece of property did not carry the same legal weight. Harm was measured through hierarchy. Hittite law is fascinating because it was not always as bloodthirsty as people expect ancient law to be. In some ways, it could be more practical than dramatic, but that practicality is exactly what makes it unsettling. Suffering becomes a table of payments. Egyptian cat punishment. Ancient Egypt's relationship with cats is famous, but one of the most repeated claims about Egyptian law needs careful wording. Greek historian Diodorus Siculus claimed that in Egypt, killing a cat could lead to death, even if the killing was accidental. Ancient Egypt did treat cats with religious and cultural importance. Cats were associated with protection, household life, and the goddess Bastet. Cat mummies and sacred animal cults also show that felines held a special place in Egyptian religious practice. But this topic is complicated. The claim about a death penalty comes mainly from Greek and Roman descriptions of Egypt, not from a clearly preserved Egyptian criminal statute. At the same time, cats were also mummified in huge numbers, and some were bred for religious offerings. That creates a strange contradiction. Cats could be sacred, protected, sacrificed, and commercialized within the same broad religious world. Discussions of this topic often note the tension between Diodorus' claim about punishment and the large-scale production of cat mummies. So the safest way to tell this story is not to say, Egypt definitely had a simple cat law. It is better to say ancient writers claimed cat killing could be punished with extreme severity, and that the claim reflects how sacred cats appeared to outsiders. The weirdness lies in the contrast. A small household animal became a religious symbol powerful enough that foreigners described its death as a legal catastrophe. Whether the punishment was always applied exactly as reported or not, the story shows how animals could carry sacred meaning far beyond their size. Thank you for watching. To support the creation of more videos like this, please like this video, subscribe, and leave a comment suggesting a topic for our next video. Thanks again, and goodbye.